Nice to see you all. I wanted to briefly add a bit of introduction to Dick's resume, because he's a little too modest when he shared the background. Dick and I have been friends and colleagues for more than 30 years. I think my only real claim to fame is that the first person I ever hired, Sarah Bates, met Dick at the Conservation Law Foundation and eventually became Sarah Bates Henry, Dick's wife. And so we have a long history. As you heard, he heads the Jordan Institute, which is really the leading building energy science organization that I know, certainly in New England, possibly in the country. So you're going to learn a lot about building energy and how to save it from Dick tonight. He's had a really quite a remarkable career. I get dragged into pieces of it now and then. Possibly my favorite before this stage of our careers together was when Dick was a sheep farmer. And just to show you how committed he is to the whole notion of energy efficiency, Dick, I believe, had the largest, it's a flock of sheep, not a herd, a flock of sheep east of the Mississippi River that he was running on transmission line corridors for utility companies, with the sheep eating everything on the corridors so that they did not need to helicopter herbicide these corridors or mechanically cut them. And the sheep, of course, would eat everything in sight. Dick used to happily tell me that sheep viewed poison ivy as chocolate chip cookies. And this was an operation that had everything from shepherds to guard dogs to electric fence that had to migrate with the flock down the corridor, and they would graze these corridors, paid for by the utility companies who would otherwise have spent a lot more money clearing those corridors. And then the sheep went in the winter to Florida, where they grazed kudzu in cattle farms. And I tried to get them I guess you did take some sheep over to Nantucket to graze the stuff there. This was a whole, Dick has a long history with Nova Scotia, and he's Scottish, and so the sheep was part of the heritage. I got dragged into this and dragged up to northern Quebec to visit sheep operations many years ago to get a real fix on it. Dick, who was, as he always is, passionately interested in this, had already decided that they were using sheep to graze conifer forests that were being replanted at altitude in British Columbia. And the secret about sheep and conifer forests is if you plant a little conifer tree, in the first 3 to 5 years of the life of that tree, critters come and want to eat it. And it also gets, more importantly, shaded out by the other stuff that grows faster than the conifers. So the deciduous undergrowth grows and strangles out the conifers, and they never really grow. If you send sheep into those areas, which can be 10,000 feet up, 12,000 feet up on the side of a mountain, they happily eat all the deciduous stuff. And then they poop everywhere, and they fertilize all the conifers, and the conifers grow twice as fast and twice as happily. And costs you no mechanical harvesting or anything else, and boom, off you go with a nice conifer forest. So Dick had gotten that idea, right? And off we went. In any event, we want to talk to you about energy efficiency. And we're going to do it in a slightly different way, perhaps, in the other course open classrooms. We're going to sort of tag team this. Dick's the main guy. I'm going to interject questions periodically or poke ideas into the conversation. And I would encourage you, I will confess to having done my law school training across the river, where Socratic method was the only way you were supposed to learn, and so I'm still sort of attached to the Socratic method. So I'm going to encourage all of you to inject your own questions as we unfold this discussion, rather than have us talk to you for an hour and a half and then we'll pause for a while and then you can ask questions. Ask them when they come to you. There's a lot here. There's a lot that each of you should be thinking about, because there's a lot that you can do on the whole question of energy efficiency. Let me give you a couple of things that have always lived with me for many years, many of which I think I probably learned from Dick, and then I'm going to turn it over to him. As he will describe to you, we waste an unbelievable amount of energy in this country doing either really stupid things with it or doing things that could be done vastly more efficiently. My favorite examples are ones that you all live with. First and foremost are your cell phones and the chargers for all the devices that you leave plugged into the wall and regularly suck energy doing no useful work after they fully charge the devices. The current estimate for vampire loads in your house, loads that are doing no useful work, is 15% of all the energy your house consumes. Now those vampire loads are cell phone chargers, your cable box that's on all the time, your flat screen TV that's on all the time. It used to be that the refrigerator was the largest single energy user in the home, 200 watt, 250 watt device. The refrigerators now have been vastly improved because of efficiency standards that we had to jam down the appliance manufacturers. So the average fridge now uses about the equivalent of a 60 watt light bulb. So they're actually really very efficient. The biggest energy user in your home today? Nope. Flat screen TV. And it's on all the time, and it's on all the time because you're too damn impatient to wait for it to warm up. So it needs to be warm all the time for the American consumer to be happy when they hit the clicker and boom, up comes the screen. If you think about turning a laptop on, it takes a while before it actually comes up to full brightness, and that's because the LCD screen needs to warm up and blah, 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 blah. If we did that with flat screen TVs, you probably have to wait about 30 seconds before it came to full power. Instead, we have it on power all the time, and if you want to turn it off, you actually have to put it on a power strip to turn that off. So it's sucking energy in your house all the time. My other favorite on this is the clock in your microwave oven. If you think about it, how many digital clocks do you have in your home?
Oh, gosh.
Count them up. I've counted mine. What do you think?
12, 15.
12, 15. Yeah, I have a dozen. And of those dozen, I can only turn off one. The others are in the oven, the microwave, the cable box, the clock radio, and they're on all the time, and there is no off switch. The clock in the microwave oven uses more energy than the microwave oven. It's on 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and I defy you to turn it off. And you probably have 4 clocks, digital clocks, in the average kitchen in America right now. All of them telling the wrong time. You need a teenager to get them to switch to the right time, right? The other piece of information, then I'm going to hand it off to Dick, just so you think about this, because we're talking about a combination of terrible design, terrible industrial and consumer design of devices. Not these, by the way, these are quite remarkable, but, and pure stupidity that causes us to waste vast amounts of energy and causes all the problems that we've been talking about, among other things, climate change. The other good example, just to keep this in mind, for years, actually 2 examples. For years, kids would come to my office at the Conservation Law Foundation, and they'd come in and tour, and we'd sit down and we'd talk about what they could do and what could I do. And I used to tell them that the most important environmental thing they could do was eat ice cream cones. And they'd go, ice cream cones? And I'd say, yeah, don't eat it in a cup. Right? Because you eat the whole container when you eat an ice cream cone. You throw away the container when you eat it in a cup. I'll leave you with this last thought, and then we'll circle back. If you're driving and you stop to let someone out to do an errand or pick someone up and you're waiting for your wife or whatever, if your car idles for more than 10 seconds, you should turn it off. 10 seconds. It uses more energy, it uses less energy to turn it on than it does to run it for more than 10 seconds. So keep that in mind. One of the reasons, Matthias mentioned to me when he was driving a Mercedes diesel last week in Europe, that a lot of the vehicles now, the well-designed vehicles, will turn off at a stoplight if they've sat there for more than a handful of seconds, and then the engine will refire. You need to do that. You need to turn those vehicles off. It used to drive me crazy. I lived and raised our family in a suburb west of Boston. The people who would spend hours recycling every imaginable thing to take to the dump and carefully sorted glass, bottle, can, cans, paper, all the rest, would drive up to the local market, jump out of their SUV, leave the car running, go in, buy a quart of milk, come out, go home, and they would cause more harm in that one trip than all the benefit they got out of recycling all that material. One trip in an SUV to get a quart of milk, a 4,000-pound vehicle lugging one person for a quart of milk, and they left the engine running the whole time. It drove me crazy. I kept wanting to jump in the vehicles and take them away, but knew that that was not a good idea. Okay, so we're going to try to get this a little interactive. I will encourage you, if you don't ask questions, I'm going to ask questions. The only glitch in this is rather than worry about passing the mic around and getting everybody's question recorded for the purposes of keeping track of all this, I will repeat your question. So if you raise your hand, you want to inject something, ask the question. Then to get it on record, I'll just repeat it. I know it's a little awkward, but it'll at least allow things to flow more rapidly, because otherwise Lisa and others have to run around with this damn mic, and we can't do that. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dick, and off we go.